Stockton Beach, located northeast of the city of Newcastle, it's about 32 kilometers long. This beach stretches from these coordinates. The place is in a humid subtropical zone, and the average temperature in summer is around 22 degrees Celsius, and for winter about 12 degrees Celsius. Annually, Stockton receives about 1,180 millimeters of rain. So let's talk about Stockton. Stockton is pretty cool. Actually, it kind of sucks, but I'll talk about that later. Anyway, coastal sand dunes. Stockton has a bunch of these things, and to be fair, they're pretty cool. So coastal sand dunes are large amounts of sand that have built up over long periods of time. They're located right behind the active beach zone. Waves form these coastal sand dunes. The waves start by pushing a bunch of sand onto the shore, then the wind picks up the sand and then carries it on shore. The amount of sand begins to form a small mound in the ground and gets more prominent over time. Eventually, it rains. The rainwater clumps in the sand dune's core and starts to grow plants. The sand dune becomes a super great place for plants to grow. Anyway, so what do sand dunes actually do? I'm talking about them, so they must be important. The sand dunes are essentially a form of protection against hazards like wind erosion, water erosion, and defense against major storms. The dunes also protect everything behind them from flooding. As a bonus, they also serve as a source to rebuild beaches when they face erosion. So let's talk about how we're destroying the place. So if you remember 10 seconds ago, I was talking about coastal dunes. Well, for some weird reason, people want to live on those things. Yeah, sand dune houses. Yippee. So pretty much sand dunes have the intrinsic value and exotic location for a house. Anyway, since there's such a high demand for houses near the coast, those sand dunes are worth a lot. Anyway, these pesky sand dunes are kinda in the way. So pretty much the Stockton residents are sitting right on top of the Hind Dune. There is no Hind Dune anymore, just an urban area. Smart listeners will know that Hind Dunes are not meant to be urban areas. Hind Dunes are very, very important for a healthy beach, as well as for the safety of everything behind it. If you recall a bit ago, I was talking about sand dunes, so let me remind you all of why sand dunes are very important for us and the beach. Sand dunes protect against things like erosion from the wind and water. That's really important. They also help rebuild the beach whenever erosion occurs. That is super important. So it's super, super important, but that's just how it helps the beach. It's gotta help us, right? Yeah, it does help us. These mounds of sand stop water from flooding and turning your living room into a pool. What else is affecting Stockton? That's actually pretty simple. There's this little place called Nobby's. Nobby's has a beach. Fun fact about Nobby's. Nobby's is not meant to have a beach. Around 1866, some guys thought it'd be a pretty funny idea to connect the island of Nobby's to Newcastle. This move created a breakwater. Breakwaters stop the flow of water. In this case, the flow of sediment. All that nice sediment meant to replenish Stockton got stuck on Nobby's. In this cool diagram, you can see the flow of sediment. Notice how Nobby's beach takes a large amount of it and causes half of Stockton to barely receive any sediment. This is bad because it means that the beach can't rebuild itself whenever erosion happens. To make matters worse, Newcastle is a port. This means that there are even more breakwaters in the area that are stopping the flow of sediment. This disrupts the wave patterns and means that the sand can't properly get to where it needs to be. Sand mining. Sand mining is perhaps the most damaging thing to Stockton Beach. Now, sand mining pretty much removes all of the sand that is on top of the sand dune. This kills its vegetation. Sand dunes need vegetation in order to work. Once that's done, the mining takes place. The area which is about to be completely destroyed will be affected for decades. In Stockton, sand is generally mined for silica. Because of this, it makes the entire thing a whole lot worse. In order to mine for silica in sand, you need to dredge the sand on board a floating concentrator plant. This area, which is needed for dredging, along with all the other equipment, takes up a space of about 100 meters wide. This destroys everything in that 100 meter radius. Not very good at all. In case you haven't figured it out yet, this is extremely dangerous. Why, you may ask? Well, it's very simple. The sand, which is meant to say on the beach, is no longer on the beach. Also, the cool sand dunes gone, and the cool sand dunes aren't going to be back for a decade. Also, shout out to Borrow for wanting to start mining the sand dunes that are literally on the beach. Yeah, that's right, on this vodcast we like to badmouth big companies. In terms of protecting Stockton's sand dunes, the local government has decided to do the most basic form of protection. May I introduce the fence? Yep, these bad boys are littered everywhere in Stockton, and for good reason. As we've discussed multiple times already, sand dunes are important, and as you could have guessed, sand dunes are also very fragile. These fences stop random people from trampling on the sand dunes and their vegetation. It works in a very simple way, by ensuring that a person can't walk into the fenced area. Now, does it work? Yep. And are there better ways to do this? Yep. Now let's talk about people's views on this strategy. To begin, let's start with the ones who disagree. Unexpectedly, beach enjoyers are actually against the fences. To be more specific, four-wheel drivers. Their argument is that the fence is placed around obstructing access to the beach, or the sand dunes to be more specific. I mean, that's the point, but okay. These drivers enjoy using the sand dunes as a sort of way to test out their cars. They also enjoy rough terrain, since it's a four-wheel drive. That's a part of the car. Even if this involves destroying the dunes, short-term satisfaction is apparently more important. On the other hand, we have park rangers and local government. They believe that the fences are important because it reduces the amount of damage people cause to the dunes. Fair point. The park rangers especially believe that there should be more fences, mainly on areas affected by heavy erosion. Through this, the beach can slowly fix itself without interference. So, on one hand we have pro-fence and on the other, anti-fence. Which of these groups' beliefs are actually valid? The park ranger's opinion is extremely valid. For starters, they work in these affected areas and would know how bad things can get. They have first-hand experience in how effective these fences can be in protecting sand dunes. Now, the four-wheel drivers, their opinion is not valid in any way, shape or form. Their ideals serve only to benefit themselves and have no consideration for the environment.